All right. I want to thank everyone for coming to Colton's transition planning meeting today. We are all here to promote and support Colton's independence and self-sufficiency. And I just want to take a moment to introduce everyone that's joined us here. First of all, I can introduce myself. My name is Beth Kelso, and I am a board certified behavior analyst. I have had the pleasure of working with Colton and his family for the last 4 years. We also have his mom, Stephanie, here today, and as well as our school psychologist, Shazine. In addition, we have Tiffany, who is a representative with the Illinois Department of Human Services. And she also works with a supported employee program at some local businesses. So she'll be sharing some insight about that as well. Before we begin, I just want to give you a little information about what some of the key themes will be for our discussion today. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about Colton's future after graduation. There is a lot that's going to be changing for him as he moves into adulthood, and we really want to be sure that we're including his family in the decision-making process. So Stephanie, again, we are so glad that you were able to join us today. And we're also going to cover some of the different types of support that are available to Colton and to his family. And then we just want to go over some parts of what the transition process will be like, as well as some long-term considerations that you may want to take into account. And now, Colton, would you like to share with us what some of your goals are for the future as you transition out of high school?
Absolutely. It's very important to me that I am treated like my other classmates. My ultimate goals are to have a job and make enough money to live on my own. My dream is to move out of my mom's house one day. With that being said, I also want to be able to make friends, as an independent adult, and be able to make my own choices.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you for sharing that with us. Those are definitely some goals that we can work towards. There's going to be a lot of steps that we'll need to take to get you there. So we're going to talk about a lot of different options today, and we're going to want to make sure that we're all addressing Colton's needs along with what we feel is best for him. There's definitely going to be pros and cons to many of these issues, but our ultimate goal is going to be to discuss not only what's best for Colton, but what's going to align with his goals for his future. And we'll discuss those throughout our meeting today. Stephanie, would you like to share with us what some of your hopes and aspirations are for Colton's future?
Yes, absolutely. I really appreciate all of you taking the time today to meet with us. Very exciting time in our lives. And of course, my number one goal is for my son to be safe and happy. When he was young, of course, I had the typical dream of, he would go to college and start a family and all of that. But at this point, I want to make sure he has really solid foundational skills. I worry, for example, that he might not be able to take the bus. Sometimes he forgets to take his wallet or even put his wallet all the way in his pocket. And I want to make sure that he doesn't get taken advantage of. I recently saw a news program where a young man in his early 20s was able to hold a job, safely ride a bus, and live on his own with his peers. So I brought you all a clip to see that. I'd like to share it with you. I won't take too much of your time with it, but I think it's really, it lays out kind of for my son.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I think we'll all look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to watching this.
Autism and other spectrum disorders, A Place in the World. While reporting the history of autism for their book, In a Different Key, The Story of Autism, co-authors John Donvan and Karen Zucker found a program in Phoenix, Arizona that expands options for people living with autism. This is the first of 2 reports.
Why is it a big deal that Josh Kluger gets up every morning and makes his own breakfast and straightens up the place a little, and then remembers belatedly to go back and grab his lunch before he heads off to work, which takes a quarter-mile hike, texting all the way, before he reaches the bus stop, and then a 45-minute trip with one transfer along the way. And when I come on board and Josh shows me how to swipe my ticket, and it comes back, yes. Why is that a big deal? Because until last year, Josh had experienced none of this. No apartment, no paying job, no bus pass even. Actually, he'd never ridden a bus on his own before last year. How old are you now?
I'm 36.
You only really began being able to ride the bus when you were already over 30.
I think so, yes.
What did you have to learn?
Oh, I learned how streets.
And though Josh is not the chattiest person around, except perhaps when he's texting, you can tell from his stride and from his air of confidence about where he's heading that Josh really likes the life he has right now.
Is this ours? Yes.
Okay. And that he's going to keep going with it, autism or not.
So I just wanted to give you guys a chance to kind of see my perspective and where I'm coming from that. That video really spoke to me, and I want to make sure that my son is being taken care of, and I want to address those safety concerns that I have and figure out what are my options for my son at this point. Will he be able to be safe and independent after I'm gone? So hopefully you guys can help me with that today.
Thanks for sharing that video, Stephanie. It was definitely really insightful and gives us all a lot of hope about the options that exist for Colton in his future. And Colton, thank you for being here today. We're really proud of you for being proactive and vocal about your rights and standing up for what you want in your life. So give yourself a pat on the back. That's awesome. And just to re-emphasize why it's so important that we're here today, I wanted to share some research. That's a bit unfortunate, but it was a study conducted in Florida, and it studied 200 families who had transition-aged adults in their family. And of those families, 67% of them had no knowledge of transitional programs. 83% of them relied on their family as their primary care. 78% of them were unfamiliar with agencies that might assist in job development. And 19% of those individuals were employed, but they were working less than 20 hours per week and can't really be considered anything close to full-time or substantial employment. And in order for individuals in these families to make informed decisions about empowerment and future plans versus care, they must be informed about the services and options that are available to them. And some of these points that we will, hopefully discuss today, they include supported employment, adult day services, residential services, supported living, and so many more that you are, quite possibly already aware of. So let's get started on talking what some of the best options would be for Colton.
Those are some wonderful points. Thank you for sharing those with us, Shazeen. It also really speaks to what an accomplishment this is for Colton to be here today. So now let's, in the spirit of moving things forward in the conversation, the next thing we're going to want to discuss is going to be employment, because this is really going to be the first step of independent living for Colton. I'd like to turn the floor over to Colton, and hopefully you can share with us what some of your hopes are for a job, a career path, and what maybe you'd be interested in doing.
Well, I haven't had a ton of experience, but one thing I did at school was help keep inventory for all the school bake sales and track how many cookies we would need to make each day and how much money we'd made each day. I felt like I was really good at that and could see myself doing that, something like that in the future, working with money or inventory or organization.
That's great. And also, I know personally that I saw you working very diligently at those bake sales every week.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was really great to see you doing those things. So that was wonderful that you had those opportunities.
Oh, good. Just to jump in, have the previous IEPs addressed Colton's desire to work or offered him any vocational training to prepare him for the workforce?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, a lot of his programming in the last couple of years has addressed exactly that. We focused both on functional living skills, such as preparing for the day, charging his cell phone, checking his emails, and some other skills such as creating conversations, taking others' perspectives, just to prepare him for more of the social interaction aspects. And then Colton also had the opportunity this last semester to take part in our school's pre-vocational training as well. For example, he worked in this program where he got the opportunity to intern and job shadow at 3 different local businesses during the semester. So he really got some hands-on experience. It helped him to learn about following multi-step directions, asking for help, understanding forms of authority, accepting suggestions and corrections and feedback. So those were some great foundational skills that are going to help him be ready for a program that might specifically teach him the steps of the job that he'll choose.
I remember him doing those really well, and he really enjoyed those experiences, and he worked very hard on all of these. Of course, being the mom, I have some concerns about some of the skill areas for him. He's come a long way, of course, and he did work on all of those skills. But there are occasional setbacks, which are concerning because I'm not going to be around or with him every single day to make sure that he's okay with these. So there was one time that his bus schedule had changed without prior notice, and Colton had a big meltdown because he couldn't go to his uncle's house, which he does every Saturday. And so I want to make sure that while I want him to be independent and be able to have these kinds of, a job and independent living, I want to make sure that he's safe and prepared for those situations.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing your concerns so honestly with us. I can definitely understand where you're coming from. And we can absolutely continue to work on these skills. Something we've done in the past is working on contriving situations in which an unexpected event occurs, and we help Colton determine how he can figure out what to do next. So we can really help him to prepare for those unexpected situations.
Colton, going back to what your career interest and what you hope to do, what types of jobs are you interested in having, and what are some of your skills and strengths?
Well, I'm a really hard worker and I'm very punctual. I really pride myself on those 2 things. As I mentioned before, I work with keeping inventory, so I'm pretty good with math and numbers. One thing I could see myself doing is like working in the Amazon warehouse and helping fill orders and keep inventory.
Okay, that's great. You have such well-rounded interest, and specifically working in Amazon, that's huge. Research shows that it's best when a career matches interests, and having autism can actually be advantageous in the workplace. I was recently reading a case study that focused on a company built on the belief that individuals with autism can thrive in the right environment. Looking through my list, I've actually found a few opportunities that could be perfect.
Okay, that sounds great. I would love to hear more specifically about what those programs might look like, but I have some concerns related to this. For example, what would these conditions look like? Would they be places where, my son would be safe and not taken advantage of? Will he have the right support for this potential job?
Supported employment can be short or long-term, depending on the need of each individual. Another employee will work alongside Colton. He can begin by working a shorter day, and we can systematically increase the duration depending on his success and ability.
Thank you for those suggestions, Tiffany, but I really don't want to have to work half days. I feel like that's makes me feel too different than the other employees. I really want to kind of work full days like everybody else.
Okay, Colton, that's understandable. What you want is most important to us, and we will work on making sure that you achieve that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just so everyone knows, I don't want him to have like a menial job for the rest of his life. I don't want him to just flip burgers or something like that. I want him to do something meaningful and use his skills, like his math skills and his organizational skills. I did some research of my own, and I found a study that they found very low rates of employment for people with autism during transitions, and that the jobs were very menial and part-time work. And that's obviously not what Colton wants. So how are we going to address that?
Definitely, Stephanie. I actually read the same study by Taylor and Seltzer, and it was conducted a few years back, actually, not too long ago. I think it was 2011. So I'm sure the information is still rather relevant. So your concerns are completely understandable.
Yeah, and absolutely. That's a great reminder because as a BCBA, in our ethics code, quality of life for our clients is definitely a priority, as I'm sure it is for all of us. So we want to be sure that we're putting that at the top of our priorities for Colton.
Good. That's really good to hear. Like you said before, I don't want him to have a menial job, and he has also voiced that as well. So are there some good actual options for jobs that he might enjoy?
Actually, one of the primary goals of supported employment is to help individuals obtain and keep competitive jobs. These can be part-time, full-time. The pay is at least minimum wage, and they are jobs that anyone could have, regardless of their disability status. So they're not jobs that are just set aside for people with disabilities.
Wow, that sounds awesome. I like that, it could be a job that anyone could have. I never liked being singled out because I had autism.
Absolutely. There's really a number of benefits to competitive work. Mainly, we find that consumers express a strong preference for this over jobs that are set aside for individuals with disabilities.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in here again with a bit of a concern to that. So that sounds great, but would he actually earn a living wage while receiving this kind of support? And I also have heard that if he earns any real money, then he might lose his assistance from health insurance, and that's really scary. And I just want to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Yes, a major reason that some individuals may not seek employment is fear of losing those benefits. For this reason, we ensure that all consumers have access to benefits counseling when they start supported employment services and when changes occur in their work status. We consider it to be vital that consumers who are interested in working obtain that accurate information to make those informed decisions about their careers.
Okay, I see that gives us a lot to think about. Obviously, this whole process is very overwhelming, and I don't ever want him to lose the benefits. And I don't know if this is the best choice for him. I don't know. I feel like maybe I want a different option that keeps him maybe more at home at first and then out in the job field. I don't really know. I don't know what the best choice for him at this point is.
Stephanie, I think it's also really important to keep in mind and take note of the fact that there is an added benefit to this. I know that you have your concerns and they're understandable, but there was a recent study done on adults with ASD who they were compared. There was a group that was employed and supported an employment program, or the other group was unemployed. And they found that the individuals who were employed showed increased cognitive ability rather than stagnant ability in those adults who were unemployed. So that's definitely something we want to work towards for Colton at all times.
Wow, that's really awesome to hear. That's amazing. I appreciate you sharing it with me.
Of course.
Also, I think it's very understandable that all of this information can be overwhelming for you. But I also want us to remember how capable Colton has shown us that he can be of being independent, all the progress that he's made over the last few years, working towards his goals. And also, as a BCBA, it's one of my responsibilities to advocate for the best interests of Colton. So while we may not see eye to eye on all these matters, we just need to be sure that each one of us is keeping Colton at the center of our focus when we're evaluating making these choices.
And I have an added benefit to share with you guys. Another factor that comes with the employment is providing Colton with that structured opportunity to engage with others in the community, in the workplace. It'll provide, again, those structured opportunities in the forms of meetings, social functions, team building activities. So Colton, I know you mentioned that that may not always be a strong suit, and that is something, making friends is something that you would like to do. So this will provide you not only with your, earning an income, earning a wage, and being independent, you'll be able to work on those social skills. And another additional thing is that you working in a normal setting will help eliminate that stigma for other people who also have autism or other related disabilities. And as professionals in this field, it's something that we all strive for and we want to achieve for every individual.
That's really exciting. I didn't ever think that just having a job would be a good place for me to practice talking to people and getting over some of my fears. You guys have all really brought up some good points for me to think about as I move through this process.
That is nice to hear, and it's nice to hear that Colton's really excited about those things. However, being the mom that I am, I've also read some research about social activity and friendship, that it may increase during adulthood, but also that social isolation and loneliness are big issues, especially with this community. And I want to make sure that my son doesn't go through that, and I want to make sure that he has the supports in place to be able to deal with those issues.
Yeah, this really makes me nervous because it really is hard for me to meet people. So I want to set myself up for success in terms of being people and people that I can become friends with.
Yes, part of the supported employment is to offer extensive training on the job site with a job coach. Some of the training can include interpersonal skills, communication, and I often find the companies we work with are open to training their staff in autism awareness to help them better understand and work with individuals on the spectrum.
That's awesome. One thing I've heard of, which sounds like it really could be a cool option for me, is living in a group home or a residential facility. What do you guys think about that?
That's definitely something we can look into. You need to know that the number of adults with autism currently waiting for placement is 80,000, with another estimated 500,000 transitioning to the state funding system over the next 10 years. So these facilities are not easy to get into. Another con to living outside the home in a group setting are this placement can be institutionalized rather than person-centered care. The congregate housing, such as farmsteads or group homes, can start with great intentions, but managing and funding these settings may require professional management, which then leads to institutionalization of these environments. Persons living in group homes have varying needs, but rules are tailored for the group rather than the individual for efficiency purposes. This may result in less autonomy and self-determination for individuals. With that being said, though, there are many, many pros to living in a group home environment. There'll be staff to assist you with cooking, shopping, transportation, and scheduling appointments. You'll be surrounded by peers that can relate to the same types of experiences and difficulties you encounter. And living in a group home or residential facility could definitely work for you.
I just want to say, Stephanie, I completely understand your concerns and you worrying about what will happen with Colton after he moves out of the family's home. And I want you to also know that this process of launching, which is known as the process of when the adult children move out of the family's home and become independent or living independently, whatever that means for them, it is overwhelming for parents of almost all children who have autism or other disabilities. So we're all here for that purpose, and we're all here to make this process as comfortable for you, and doing all of this while keeping Colton's needs, his desires, as the center of our focus. I won't touch too much on it because Tiffany just mentioned everything about it, but while it is difficult to get into those residential facilities or group homes, it is something that I would also emphasize that you guys think about, because it does provide those structured social opportunities, and you will have support there to help you with those opportunities and to engage with others. And just to quickly touch on a research study that was conducted on individuals living in a residential facility who had the staff to support them with socialization. Initially, they were engaging and socializing 0% of the time, and at the end of their stay there, they were engaging up to 21% of the time. So that is a great development that they made, and that's something that we would be happy to work towards for you too, Colton.
That's great information to know. You guys have given me a lot of good information about these facilities, but it seems like they're really difficult to get into. I don't know that I'm confident that we can count on this option. What if he doesn't get placed in one of these?
Those are valid concerns, and those are not your only options. There are single residency apartments within a facility. It's almost like living in a college dorm. This way he has the privacy of his own space. He's, again, surrounded by peers, and he has the extra support he may need. But again, with that, there could be a wait. But we can also look at living independently in the community, in his own apartment or with a roommate. Living in his own apartment can actually cost less than a group home or residential facility. The services can be provided by caregivers working for Colton, and under his direction, they can come in and out, they can stay 24 hours. It's just depending on what Colton wants to do.
It seems like there's a lot of options. How do we determine what's right for Colton?
Well, together we need to determine his level of independence and the types of supports he will need to actually live as independently, and we can't forget safely, as possible. It's important that Colton has a voice in choosing where and how he wants to live. The research consistently reveals individuals living at the highest level of independence have the highest quality of life.
That's really nice to hear. Of course, that's my goal for him. It's going to take me a bit of time to get comfortable with the idea of him moving out, getting a job, and being independent, because I worry. But hopefully there's some support available for parents like me as well to make this process a little bit easier.
There is. I actually personally, I offer support to many parents going through this transition phase just as you are. My door is always open, and I'm only one phone call or email away. Again, my goal here is to just make this as comfortable as possible for you, while making sure that Colton is fulfilled and happy with his decisions, and that he feels that he has that autonomy in his life. Also, just looking back to research again, it suggests that parents who also get support during this time, it makes the transition process not just easier for themselves, but also for the child, and it allows the parent to let that child make independent choices and to trust the child, because they know that the support that the child has received to learn those skills. So overall, it's going to help get to the end results.
Wow. That's really great to hear. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure I'll be seeking out your services as we move forward with this.
So I just want to help us wrap up here today. I know we've covered a lot of material. It sounds like we have a really great foundation moving forward. But before we go, there are a couple of questions that we frequently receive from parents whose children are transitioning that we haven't yet covered. So I thought some of this information might yet be worth sharing. First of all, I want to say how great it is that Colton has helped us lead this meeting today. This is really so important and is a big step for him. When a client can actually lead their own transition meeting, it helps to ensure that the team stays focused around what the client wants. And I feel like we've done a really great job today of really listening to him. Sometimes meetings led by other parties, although people have the best of intentions, they can often be pulled in directions that benefit themselves rather than keeping the focus primarily on him. Also, by having Colton be so involved today, it's really helping to promote his his self-determination, self-sufficiency, and autonomy. So that's just excellent. Wonderful job today, Colton. Also, I'd like for us to touch a little bit on some of the legal protections that are in place for hiring processes and employment for people with disabilities, since that's obviously one of the next steps for Colton's goals. And Tiffany, I was hoping you could maybe speak to some of those issues.
Of course. They have the Americans with Disabilities Act. This law ensures that people with disabilities are not discriminated against in terms of jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private open to the public. Colton will be protected by law as he transitions out into the real world. Additionally, there are other acts. There is the Rehabilitation Act, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and the Civil Service Reform Act. These protect various rights for people with disabilities in the workforce and in society.
Thank you. And Stephanie, do you have any final questions today?
Yeah, I'm wondering, so you as a behavior analyst, working with transition age youth like Colton, do you have a responsibility to support his self-determination, or is it just kind of something that you're doing to be?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's actually a part of our code of ethics. Specifically, we have a code that states that the rights of our clients are paramount. And so we support their legal rights and prerogatives throughout this process.
And, I'm also thinking just what are some other barriers that hinder, maybe not just Colton's success, but other clients' success who are transitioning to adulthood?
I'll go ahead and jump in and answer that for you. A lot of these issues and barriers we've already discussed, but they include funding, limited housing, and individuals with autism, they tend to have trouble transitioning, I'm sure, as you know. They tend to struggle with new routines and adjusting to new environments. But these are all things that we can definitely provide you with resources for and provide guidance to help navigate those areas and make them easier if you are to encounter them.
Also, a few other areas that might present challenges for Colton that we've come across are, meeting and socializing with new people. Also, learning new skills can sometimes be overwhelming. Not to mention organizing daily activities independently, and that lack of structure once he leaves school, it can sometimes be problematic. Additionally, occasionally issues with rigidity and inability to deal with unplanned changes in his schedule, like we've already touched upon, can be troublesome. So we can certainly, we already have some programs that are in place that we're working on these issues. And then in our next meeting, we can discuss prioritizing the next area of skills that we'll focus on to keep him progressing in these areas.
Well, I really appreciate you answering all of my questions. Thank you, everyone, for meeting with us today. I appreciate the time you all took out of your busy schedules to come together to help us find options that are best for Colton. It would be great to see you all again soon, even before our next meeting. We would love if you guys could all join us at Colton's graduation party coming up very soon. I've been planning it for months, and I would love if you guys could bring your families as well.
Yeah, I would love that, you guys. It'd make it even more special for me.
Wow, thank you, Stephanie and Colton, so much. That is such a gracious invitation. It's really thoughtful of both of you. However, I can speak on everyone's behalf, I think, that it would actually be a conflict of interest for us to do that, as we just want to ensure that our relationship remains professional, so that way we're continuing to keep Colton's future and best interests at the center of our focus. But really, please know that we are so proud of your accomplishments, Colton, and we're going to be cheering you on and celebrating with you in spirit for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to second what Beth just said. I will have to decline your wonderful invitation, but thank you so much. And Colton, I am so proud of you.
Thank you. Well, thanks, everybody. I really appreciate the feedback and the good wishes. I really can't wait to graduate.
Yeah, I'm so excited too. I'm so sorry I didn't even think about the fact that might not be something that we would be able to do. But But thank you very much for being so gracious about it.
Oh, absolutely. Don't worry about it. All right, now everyone, I just want to take a moment to thank you all for being here today. You've all contributed so much to this transition plan for Colton. And Colton, we will see you again very soon to continue working on this, and good luck with your graduation and have fun at your party. And we'll reach out shortly to settle out some dates and times for our next meeting very soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm sure I'll have some more questions before our next meeting.
Absolutely.